Hey there, if you had asked me 20 years ago how many ukuleles, banjos, and basses I would own today, I would have said none. But today I own 6 ukuleles, 4 banjos, and 5 basses. And at some point, I've got a series, Why So Many Guitars. I should do an episode of Why So Many Guitars Bass Edition, and I'll talk about all 5 basses. But bass is one of those things where it's just what's called in the music business a double. When you play another instrument in a union session, you get a little bump pay-wise for adding another instrument. You just cannot have too many instruments that you can add. You know, guitar, mandolin, electric guitar. You could, say banjo or dobro or a bunch. Every time you add an instrument to that session, they have to pay you a little bit more money. So there's a real trend for guitar players to pick up and learn as many instruments as they can. And I'm no different than the average guitar player here in LA. And so bass just became one of those things where I got a bass because a composer asked me if I had one, and I said, well, I don't. I said, well, let me get a bass. And so I went and bought this Squier. Oh no, this is actually a Fender, Mexican Fender J bass, and I used this for years. So, but I have, as a guitar player playing bass, I have 5 tips or suggestions for any guitar player that's going to pick up the bass for just a side instrument or a main instrument or just for fun. Okay, so here are my 5 tips. Number 1, it's great to be wanted. Everyone wants to be the guitar player, right? Okay, I'm the guitar player. But I'd rather be a bass player in a gigging band than a guitar player sitting alone in my bedroom playing and jamming by myself. It's much more fun to work and to play, and there are a lot of phenomenal, famous bass players that started out as guitar players. I can think of 3 offhand. One, Paul McCartney, one of the best known, most number 1 hits than anybody. Paul McCartney started out on guitar. Number 2, Carol Kay, who's a member of the Wrecking Crew, and if you don't know who they are, you want to look it up. There's a movie called The Wrecking Crew that you can check out. She played on more hits, bass on more hits than probably anybody else in the history of the world. But she started out on guitar. She's actually a very, very good guitar player. But she played bass on almost everything she did that was well known. And also Gene Simmons from the band Kiss was originally a guitar player, but the band needed a bass player, and you've got to rise to the occasion. So that's one of the main things. It's great to be wanted. Number 2, it's not the same instrument. It serves a very different purpose in the band, the bass does, than the guitar. Guitar, you're playing a lot of chords, especially if you're a rhythm guitar player. In bass, you tend to play single notes. You may play chords occasionally, but it's very rare. Also, bass has its own clef called bass clef, also known as the F clef, and guitar generally is written in treble clef. I love this example of Smoke on the Water, where you've got 2 different parts. And a lot of people learn Smoke on the Water wrong. They usually play it with power chords, starting with a G on the bottom. But it's actually, Richie Blackmore's playing 4ths. And I'm playing it up here on the bass, so I'm in the same octave as the guitar. But that's really how he's playing it. And the bass is not playing. The bass, in contrast to what the guitar is doing what's called, in this song, in this instance, is a pedal tone or a pedal point. He's basically just sitting on the bass note, on the G note, sorry. And then on top. Right? So it's a totally different role in the song, let alone in the band. So you've got to make a kind of mental shift when you pick up the bass to play that you're going to be playing a different role in the band. Okay. Listen to the kick drum. I always give this example. When I was teaching clinics, I would always tell guitar players, listen to the drummer's right hand, which if a drummer's playing right-handed on a right-handed kit, he's playing a hi-hat with his right hand for the most part. And that's where you can get the breakdown, whether it's an 8th note groove or 16th note groove, if he's, but listen to the hi-hat. I usually, in my ears, I usually turn up the hi-hat louder than maybe some of the other parts of the drum kit, because that's what I'm really going to try to lock to. But with a bass player, you really want to, I always say, a guitar player needs to lock his right hand with the drummer's right hand. A bass player needs to lock his right hand with the drummer's right foot. And that's generally when a drummer's playing right-handed kit, he's playing the kick drum with his right foot. So that's really what you want to listen to. You want to listen to kick drums. And if you can lock with the kick and you're playing your lines, and if the kick is boom, 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 then if you play that, you've already got a good part. Right? And so that's what you want to try to lock to. So it's a very different approach to playing with others, playing bass versus playing guitar. All right, tip number 4, don't abuse your power. Okay, what do I mean by that? All right, so if you look at a chart of music, if you're looking at the song that you're getting ready to play, and say there's a G chord in it, and a C chord, and a D chord, and an E minor chord, and maybe there's a G over B, which if it says G and a slash with a B, if you're a bass player, you play the B. The guitar player will play a G, you play a B, okay? If there's even one, what I call slash chords, in the entire chart, then whoever wrote the song or whoever arranged the song knows that you can play what's called inversions. And that's what a slash chord is. G over B is technically a first inversion G chord. It's got the 3rd in the bass. Okay, I know that's confusing. I need to do a video on that. I haven't really talked about that before. But that means that you just play what's written. You don't need to kind of go off chart and go, oh, what would be cool is if I played the B in the bass as a leading tone up to the C. If the progression were G, D to E minor, you could go to, okay? I'm still implying a G chord by playing that B note, but you have a lot of power right there as a bass player, because you're at the bottom. Sonically, on the sonic landscape, you're operating in that lower part of the sonic landscape, and you can direct the progression very much by changing what bass note is being played. And like I said, if there's already a slash chord in the song, the composer or the arranger knows that they can do that, and they want those slash chords in very specific spots. So it is not your job, and it's one of my pet peeves. I will not use bass players that do that. I will not hire them if they get off chart too much and do that kind of thing, because they're just trying to, they're changing the entire mood of that moment of the song. A couple bass players I've worked with have done things like this, where they get a little bored playing G, C, D to C. So one of the tricks in songwriting and in music arranging, you can really change the mood if you do what's called a minor sub. All right. So if instead of playing G, instead of playing G major, I could play E minor. The thing is, if everyone in the band is playing a G and you as a bass player goes, oh hey, I'll do the minor sub, you know you have the power to make it sound like an E minor chord. Actually, you're making it sound like an E minor 7 chord, because they're all playing G chords. So the G chords have a D in it, and so it ends up with, you're playing E and then they're playing G, B, D, so it ends up with an E minor 7th chord. That may be taking it really far away from the composer, the songwriter, or the arranger's intent, and you've just abused your power as a bass player. And guitar players are really prone to do that kind of thing because they know how to do that when they're arranging and writing songs. So they think, oh, what would be cool is if I did that. And it's very powerful. You can even do even weirder substitutions than that, and it really will take the song very, very far away from where the composer and writer, arranger intended. And that's not your job. Okay. My 5th tip for guitar players who are playing bass is focus on the groove. You should do that as a guitar player. You should do that as a sax player. You should do that as a singer and a drummer and everybody, keyboard player. Everyone should be focusing on the groove. But what I mean by that is that you can really, if you're stuck, you know, and I say stuck, I don't mean it in like a derogatory way. It's an honor to play eighth notes. Or even quarter notes. Okay? But you can start to focus a little bit. Listen to the kick drum, listen to the drummer. Is he laying it back a little bit? Is he being a little bit late? And that gives it more of an R&B kind of laid back feel. Is he rushing it? Is he ahead of it? Well, in heavy metal, you tend to, especially speed metal, not only are the songs fast, you also tend to be a little bit what they call on top of the beat or a little in front. It's very, very little. It's milliseconds. But it can make a big difference in the overall vibe of the song if you're laying back or if you're playing ahead or if you're playing dead on. Okay, you've got you know, an infinite number of options in that scenario when you're talking about milliseconds here. It really can be, you can be just a little laid back or you can be really laid back. You can be just a little ahead or you can be really ahead. And it creates a different emotion. So I hope this helps. Bass has been a really fun instrument. I love playing bass. I haven't played it much on gigs. Maybe a couple times I've had to play bass on a gig. Generally people call me to play guitar. But it's a great double for me because I use it all the time when I'm working for different composers and for when I'm writing music for TV. You know, I'm not getting paid anything or a lot up front to do that, so I can't really hire a bunch of musicians to play all my music for me, so I have to play it all myself. So for me, it was one of those things where, yeah, I'm just going to get a bass so that I can play bass on my own songs, and that may be why you get the bass. But just keep your mind set on making sure that you change your thinking when you pick up the bass and don't try to play it like a guitar player. Nothing's more annoying than a bass player who is like, I'm trying to annoy you. Okay, if it's a solo, if it's a bass solo, then okay, maybe. Otherwise, yeah, stick to the feel and the groove. Okay? God bless you. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe. And if you do, hit the notifications bell so that you'll get a notification letting you know when I'm either online doing a live stream or if I've uploaded a new video. Okay? Thanks so much. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye. Okay, I have a number 6, an addendum to my video here. I thought of this as I was editing the footage from before. Guitar players generally use a pick, and on bass, you can use a pick. It's not bad, it's good for rock. I sometimes like to, if I'm doing something really, really fast, I'll probably have to pull a pick out because I can't play as fast with my fingers. I'm not much of a thumb player, but the finger thing is generally what people are expecting to hear when they listen to bass. So if you can work, it's a whole new skill if you're not used to doing it. But basically, I would recommend try to learn how to play bass with your fingers. If you can't, or you are in a hurry and you have to really play something, you can use a pick. It's totally fine. But it's a different sound and a different vibe. And on my bass 6, which again, I'm going to do a video about all my basses because they're all very different basses. I wouldn't have 5 basses if they were identical. But I do like to use pick on my bass 6 because it makes it really, really like thwacky is the word that comes to mind. Thwacky. I don't know if it's a word or not, but it's a word to me. So anyway, so I don't have a problem with pick, but fingers preferred. If I can play it with fingers, I'll play it with fingers.